Hi, this is Jacob Sapochnik with the Enchanting Lawyer podcast. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our show. This is a show where we interview inspiring entrepreneurs, business owners, attorneys, and marketers from all over the world that can share their stories and experience with our audience. And before we get to our guests, I just wanted to thank our listeners. I got so many emails in the past few weeks from listeners from all over the world just saying thank you for the show and that they learned so much from our guests. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward to doing more great shows for you guys because of the tremendous support we're getting. And today I have a very inspiring and young entrepreneur, and I'm very excited to do this interview. Her name is Laura Madison. She's from Bozeman, Montana, and she is one of the most innovative people for cars. She's a car saleswoman in Bozeman, and she sells Toyotas. The next interesting things about Laura is that she's been using social media exclusively to reach out to her customers and transform the way business is done at that dealership. And she was covered in several articles, and I'm very excited to have Laura on the show. Welcome, Laura.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. Great.
And Laura, like I said, as we started talking before the show, I was just really inspired when I came across the article about you on Twitter. And one of the things that I saw to be very different there is that you really took a different approach. You said people are doing one thing, they sell cars in this case one way, and I'm going to do something different. So why don't you tell me a bit about yourself, how you came about selling cars, and briefly about your story of doing this.
Sure. So I started in sales since I was actually pretty young. I worked in high-end women's retail sales, so a lot of clothing. And when I moved to Montana, I had actually sought out a position selling Toyotas specifically. I had a friend on the East Coast that sold cars. I thought it might be a good fit for me and loved the Toyota brand. So really kind of sought that out. And the idea behind my approach, which of course is really anchored around social media and my own website and branding myself, is that there, especially as a new salesperson in the industry, I didn't have a lot of customers. And I was fairly new actually to Montana, so didn't know a lot of people in town in general. And there tended to be a lot of downtime. So I just tried to use that downtime in a more what do I want to say, a more progressive way, right. and actually ended up, creating my own economy and branding myself, and I've been really fortunate for it.
And the most important thing that is interesting about you is that you market yourself and you market the brand that you sell, Toyota, but you're not really marketing the dealership. And I think it's a very important distinction to make. And why don't you kind of tell me more about this? What gave you this idea to do it this way?
Sure. So there's not a lot of women in the automotive industry, particularly in sales. I read something recently, I'm not sure how accurate it was, but that there's less women selling cars than there are male nurses. So it's really kind of an interesting distinction. And what was happening when I reached out to folks about selling cars with Toyota in my dealership, which is Ressler Motors, there was some confusion if I were a salesperson or was I the marketing representative for the dealership. And that happened almost immediately. Some people even wondered if I was the receptionist. I think conceptually, a lot of people had a hard time understanding this is a woman selling cars. So that's where this idea that I really need to market myself came up. And I appreciate the support from my dealership because, of course, I think it's really a fabulous place to work. And they've been really great working with me over the years, branding myself this way. But really, it just originated from an idea of trying to be crystal clear, in my goals of bringing customers directly to me.
And so when did you realize that the way they're selling cars before you started was kind of off or not really working, and kind of started developing your own different unconventional method of selling?
Time frame was fairly immediate, but I always want to mention, I don't know that it's their approach that's completely off. It wasn't something that was right for me, the way that they do it. And generally what happens is you just wait in the showroom or on the car lot until a customer comes onto the lot. And that psychology, the amount of time spent waiting and just doing nothing but waiting, is just something that really didn't work well with my personality. I'm very hyperactive. I like to be doing something and feel that I'm accomplished. So it became really evident within the first week that this was something that I needed to kind of have an outlet. And there was only, about the first few months, there's only so much you can learn about the product and really memorizing and understanding the competition. And once that ran out, once I felt like I really had mastered that element of it, I knew that I needed to move on. So within the first 6 months in the business, I had created both my website, lauratoyota.com, and YouTube and Facebook and all of those other mediums.
And how did you convince your supervisors and the management of the dealership to give you that? Because I'm sure that you can't just go ahead and do it without getting the support of the management to say, you know what, go ahead and try it, and we'll see what happens.
Well, I think actually I have, and hopefully they'll giggle at this, but it's something that we've laughed about over the years. My philosophy actually has generally been ask for forgiveness rather than ask for permission. So I don't know that I'd recommend it going forward for anybody else, but I really didn't ask that many questions. I just thought, hey, let me give this a try. I'm here anyway, so let me work on things and kind of hammer out, maybe what I want to look like online and what I want to do to kind of grow my own, what I call micro business. So it wasn't until probably about a year in that they finally started to kind of pay attention to what I was doing, both on my computer, on my mobile, on my iPhone, and what I was doing when I was videoing on the car lot. But I think prior to that first year, they kind of wondered what this little blonde girl was doing on their lot, period.
Right. And and I looked at your channel, YouTube. I mean, the videos are really interesting because they really drive the customer to connect with you. It's not just somebody who is a fake spokesman for an agency. It's somebody who really cares about the product. In this case, cars. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really interesting how you did it. But I feel that what you've done, a lot of our audience, professionals, attorneys or accountants, and they feel that they are kind of working in a mold. It's always the same. Everybody's doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I felt that could be inspiring for them to listen to your story because, what prevents from somebody who is an attorney or, they're just starting their practice or they're working for a big firm and say, you know what, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to, work for a big firm, but I'm going to do my own blog. And in this blog, I'll do some videos and I'll teach people about my area. And so what? So let's see what happens. And many people are still afraid to do that. And I think that I'm just curious to see what was the reaction of your peers when they saw you doing what you're doing and suddenly sales are coming to the dealership and you are getting there up there. You started with about selling 12 cars in the beginning, and then you're selling out about 20 almost more than 20 cars a month.
Yeah.
So how did they react?
My peers' reaction again was always kind of, I think confused more than anything. And in hindsight, Jacob, I would say if you're working, whether it's in a law firm or a dealership, if you have any employees or management, I would say the thing that I didn't do well is lay out, hey guys, this is what I'm going to do, and this is what I'm hoping to accomplish, and these are the tools I'm going to use. Instead of doing that and even giving them an idea of what I was doing, I just kind of did it. And so I think I looked a little rogue at the beginning, and the reaction wasn't terribly positive. I think, again, there was confusion. I think they kind of left me off to do my thing, maybe were a little standoffish. And it wasn't until actually very recently that they actually had some appreciation and respect. And sometimes some of my salespeople now will even use some of my videos to send to customers that maybe aren't standing in front of them. So the acceptance has come more gradually on that front.
So, I mean, to me, this is just very, very inspiring. And why don't you share with the audience maybe a quote or an inspirational saying that you follow or you like? I always like to ask our guests to do that.
Sure. So my favorite, it, of course, is themed with the car business that I love, but it's Henry Ford, and likely you've heard it before, Jacob.
Right.
It's whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Absolutely. We actually used it on our Facebook page a few weeks ago, so I love that quote.
Good.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, this is something that kind of I mean, it drives the way you do your work, and it's a very good one to follow. And when you started using those social media, what was your main platform that you started, and why?
It was YouTube. Was the main platform, and the reason is because visual content is very compelling. People prefer generally to watch, visual content over reading a long blog post. It's more engaging, and it's also a way to really kind of convey every method of communication rather than just writing without being able to indicate tone or use body language or some of the nonverbal types of communication. Video can really display a message exactly as I'd like to convey it.
And so when you started doing your YouTube videos, did you have a strategy? What was your goal when you started doing the first videos?
I didn't have a strategy as much as I kind of winged it. I thought there wasn't really anybody in my industry that was doing this. So I didn't have anybody to kind of look after or try and mimic. So what I tried to do was just make genuine, helpful content. And it's something that I think any business person could really accomplish. We all have a wealth of knowledge in our industry, whether again it's law firms or automotive or even any type of retail sale. You have to over time kind of accrue this knowledge, and I think it's such a great platform to try and share it with. So my idea was just trying to put out helpful content that made me look at like an expert or a resource in the industry.
And so what happened? You started doing those videos. You posted them on your channel, and then what happened? Kind of describe to us the reaction and the kind of comments you were receiving after the videos were live.
Sure, yeah. So once I put them up, nothing happened. It takes quite a bit of time for you to, I think, generate content that's valuable, to kind of figure out what length is right. Who is your audience? What types of videos are best received, and what types of videos do you like doing the best? So I first put it up, and it probably took about a year to get to 20,000 views, and that's really when it seemed for my channel, 20,000 views on the channel was the first when YouTube really started kind of recommending me to their visitors. So they might be watching another video about a car and suggest me in the sidebar. So it did. It took a little time, but in that time I tried as much as I could to also create written content on my blog and lauratoyota.com, and also start kind of cross promoting not only my content, but also other people in the industry, automotive blogs, automotive industry news, information about recalls, and share that on all the other platforms so I could kind of grow my brand and, again, grow this idea that, that I'm helpful and that I'm a resource.
And so when YouTube videos were starting to get popularity, were you promoting them outside of YouTube as well?
Yeah, I was definitely promoting them on Facebook and Twitter, wanting at least to let people know that they're out there. And then what's nice about kind of having simultaneously, of course, while I'm doing this all on the internet, I have customers walk into the store, that I meet for the very first time. And sometimes I found that these videos could be really helpful content if perhaps they have a spouse that wasn't able to accompany them to that shopping trip. I could convey some information without the spouse physically being here. So it turned into, something more than I thought it would in regard to communication and relationship building for people right in front of me. So it definitely ballooned locally. I video has a great, and this is another reason that I wanted to use it, video has a really great search engine optimization feature on it. So so I found that when people are searching for example, a Toyota Highlander, videos of mine can come up rather easily, even if it's just a video of me explaining kind of what my favorite features of the Highlander are. It's not necessarily me, a commercial of me trying to sell it to somebody. So it exploded locally, and then definitely nationally, I started getting a lot of attention from other car salespeople or other people in various types of businesses that just wanted to kind of know the motivation and, more importantly, how well it had worked for me and if it was worth them venturing into.
Right. And I agree with YouTube has been a very powerful tool. I mean, we have a channel for our law firm, and that's been always an interesting way to just get information out there. But also when clients come to the office and they see you on the video, they feel that they know you already.
Exactly.
And I think it can work the same with a service business like selling cars, where I saw Laura on the video and she's right here, and she's the same person, and so that creates even more of a bond between you and the customer. And
Yes.
I cannot encourage. I mean, this is just one of those things that we emphasize people. Try video, because this is one of those things that they're free, and YouTube is the search engine right now. It is Google, so
Exactly.
You cannot ignore it. But you were using that the videos, and you were promoting it on Facebook and Twitter, and I know you're very active on Twitter. How's Twitter been helpful for you, and maybe give us some examples of how you use it?
Sure. So, Twitter was interesting. It was probably the medium that I was least excited to jump into, but almost felt an obligation. If I was going to venture into the social media realm and have my micro business anchored around social media, I felt that I had to do Twitter, but I didn't have any kind of plan of attack or any idea how it would work for me. And what's been great is each medium seems to play its own role. And Twitter is an amazing community for me. And I can't speak to other people's experiences, but Twitter is how I met automotive industry professionals from all over the country. It's where I get most of my content that helps me figure out how to title or headline a blog post. It's how I figure out, maybe what the best tips and tricks are for shooting a video, in a cloudy day or dim lighting. I mean, it's been both helpful for content and then helpful for connections and encouragement, which has just been wild. And now is probably my favorite platform for connecting, with other people and just, again, getting more ideas and kind of building and expanding my network.
Excellent. And I do believe that Twitter is a tool that, if you understand how it works, if you listen to the right communities, the right people, and engage with them, it can be a huge boost to any brand or any person trying to connect with people. It's
Absolutely.
just and Twitter is actually on the rise right now. It's different than Facebook. What is your experience with Facebook?
Facebook definitely plays a different role. It feels a little bit more intimate.
Right.
I believe Facebook does. I find that one of my biggest challenges is coming up with really stimulating visual content for Facebook. It seems Twitter really values the written word, and Facebook really values a powerful image. So I've definitely been improving, I think, over the years, coming up with that. And one thing that's really, again, surprised me about the medium for Facebook is my customers add me almost immediately after meeting me. Even if they don't know that I've done this out in the realm, even if they just meet me on the street or know somebody that bought a car from me. And so it's been a great way to really stay connected. It's the best way, I think, to have an involvement in your client's life. And it blurs the line between clients and friends, which I think is really fabulous.
Correct, because you stay top of mind, and next time they know somebody who wants to buy a car, guess what? They'll be able to tag you or send a message and say, you know what, this is my friend. Can you help him?
Exactly. And there's whole different levels. I mean, you can go on a great vacation and post a couple photos of it, and the next time you maybe see a client, they're asking you about it, and they're seeing these things, and I think it gives you much more meaningful conversation than our traditional kind of networking small talk, and it just makes that relationship that much stronger.
Right, I agree with that as well. And one of the things that what notice about you, and I think that you're doing it remarkably, is the connection between social media and offline media, offline efforts to market. And for example, you've I read that you had your car wrapped to promote your website
That's right.
with the Lower Toyota brand. You're doing cards to your clients, kind of like you have this birthday for the car deal where you send them the cards, things that are done outside of the online communication. And I want you to share with me what are the ideas that you're doing, and how is that helping validate everything that you do online as well?
Sure. So I think the my favorite thing to do offline is cards, and it's whether it's congratulating somebody on their recent purchase, or like you mentioned, wishing their car a happy second birthday.
Right.
If I have any other information about them, generally I have people's personal birthdays. I sometimes can even get anniversaries, and then holiday cards. Especially around the Christmas holiday season and New Year's holiday season are some of my favorite, because so much now what we receive in the mail is bills, if we're receiving those at all. So I think people really like the anticipation and being able to open something that I took some time to write. And I always want to be clear with people, I hand write all of those. So I think there's an understanding, again, that I took a moment, I included a few personal details in the card. And going back to a little bit of a Facebook connection, I wrote a card the other day to a gal. It's her 1-year anniversary of having her Toyota Prius, but I did just see on Facebook that she went on a road trip down to Arizona. So I mentioned something about that in the card. Again, another little personal detail, so she knows that not every card I sent out that day had the exact same content, and also that I'm paying attention, and then that I loved seeing the photos of her Prius and her family on the road trip, and hearing great things about it. So I think finding a marriage between online and offline is just the perfect way to brand yourself. And now most of those cards that I send do have my web address, lauratoyota.com, printed on the bottom.
Yeah, this is very powerful, because they see that the card was not just the same card. You actually personalize it because of something that you saw, and I'm sure that they'll remember that you did that. It's how you made them feel is going to stay with them.
Yeah,
So
that's
this
the
is
hope.
so. We talked about a lot of your success and the things that you do that make you successful in your dealership because of your. It's been now ranked the 5th in customer satisfaction because of your efforts. But why don't you tell me a story about a failure, something that you've done that didn't succeed, or what you learned from that? I'll be curious to hear.
Yeah, so that was probably a tough thing for me to try and come up with in anticipation with speaking with you on the show, which is always nice, right? When you're struggling to come up with a failure. But I would say the biggest failure, it didn't sink my ship, but it was the lack of understanding and the tension that this all created when I really kind of started to get going, branding myself without the dealership, and using online as a tool, and spending less time watching the car lot, and an expression I use is face pressed against the glass,
Right.
waiting for the next person to come, and more time kind of anchored at my computer. And they didn't know what I was doing. And again, I would recommend for anybody venturing into this to at least clue in your management that this is what you're hoping to accomplish. But that was really, really a tense couple years there on both ends. I think communication was poor, and I think frustration, would get really high with both parties. And I really felt like my industry needed to transform, and I think my management for a long time felt like it had been so successful for so long. Why would we change a thing?
Right. And that's actually one of the hardest things to do, to convince somebody that when they think that things are working, introduce something new. It's very, very difficult. But obviously you were able to do that. And what was actually holding you back in the beginning when you started? I mean, trying to get this thing moving, your business.
I think the biggest thing that was holding me back, I mean, aside from social media and being a woman in the car business and some of the things we've spoken about, is, and I think anybody in sales deals with this, is what goes on internally and in the mind, and some of the things that you tell yourself when you're new to a specific industry or profession. it's really difficult to not wonder if you're going to fail and wonder if you're even going to be success and wonder if you're going to, sell enough this month to be able to pay the bills that you need to. So I think harnessing that early on and really trying to create positive anticipation and positive self-talk is the number one reason for my success beyond any social media platform or, any customer that buys cars from me. I mean, that I think was really my savior.
Right, and that's very difficult to do. I mean, most of us tend to, feel bad and try to get ourselves down, but you always find the way to say, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and keep going, and those that continue to do that are the ones that succeed.
Right.
Do you have any mentors or people that you admire and you learn from, and maybe you can share maybe one business advice that you received that kind of changed the way you do your work?
Sure. I feel like I have so many people that have helped me. It's really kind of overwhelming when I think about how much help people have offered. But I think mentor and friendship more than anything. I have a gentleman that's worked with Toyota for a number of years doing training. His name is Casey Nix. And I met him, just the most colorful personality, when he came to a training at my dealership, encouraging salespeople to get on YouTube. He said when he sold cars, a decade ago, 2 decades ago, you were paying $1,000 a month to get on a billboard. And that's not necessary anymore to advertise yourself. You have this iPhone that you can film a video with and put it up on YouTube with minimal amount of effort and at no cost. And so he's been great. He's very active on Twitter, just really a great supporter, and seems to always know when I need the phone call of encouragement. And his biggest thing, he'll make me laugh. I think my most recent memory of him and his business advice is to think about, we had some conflicts in management just not too long ago at the dealership, with some people still resisting what I'm trying to do on social media. And he said, man, I think it's going to be like the Three Stooges and we're going to see a pie in the face.
Right.
And I think that's just a great visual. And so sometimes I still try and think about if somebody's maybe being a little silly or really wrapped up in saying, Laura, you need to be out there on the lot and you need to be doing things differently. I always like to think about, if I sell a lot this month, or if I'm successful enough, it'll be like a pie in the face.
It is actually an interesting visual.
Yeah, right.
We'll put it in our show notes. We can retweet it.
Yeah.
And what do you think is the importance of investing in yourself? Because I have to tell our audience that you've been paying your own money in promoting your website, building it. A lot of people they work for somebody and they feel that why would I pay for this where I'm promoting somebody else? But you realize early on that investing in these tools yourself is actually going to bring success to you, and of course later on to your brand, but to you mostly. So share with us the importance of investing in yourself and spending some money.
Sure, and I don't always know that it's an enormous dollar amount. I was really a do-it-yourselfer, and so it took me, I think, the better part of 6 months to build my website. And it's not a pristine. If a web designer looks at it, he'll certainly find more than a couple things that he'd recommend changing. But it was something that I actually didn't have the funds to do. Right. So there were some things that I really committed and buckled down and did myself. And then, like you say, with my car wrap and some other things that cost money, I can't say enough how valuable it is, because you're sending a message to prospective buyers, but also to clients that you've had in regard to a retention, that you're really committed to them and to the brand. So it really implies a type of stability that, at least in my industry, is really valuable. I think people really like to know that I'm committed. So the next time they buy a car, even if it's 5 to 10 years down the road, the idea is that I'll still be there to help them. And that's an extra boost of confidence. And then my last thought in this kind of realm is, you need to get away from the idea that you work for somebody else. I don't sit here and think about, my owner who's very kind, or my management, and because I am my own business. And the liberation that this thought gives me is so valuable. So I say often we go on a month-to-month basis selling cars, and so we have a phrase called hero to zero. So you may sell a lot of cars on the 31st, you're in great shape, and on the first day of the next month, everybody's back at zero. And what I like ending the month is whether I did well or whether I did poorly. I like to be able to say, you know, that was completely my fault, or that was completely what I did. And so it just, again, it's a very liberating kind of idea that you're controlling your own little microeconomy by branding yourself. And I think it's just so much more valuable than sitting back and waiting for an employer to pay for a website or an employer to pay for a wrap on the car.
I mean, I cannot agree more than that, because, you know, we have a lot of people that email me and they ask me, well, you know, do you think I should invest in taking this course or doing this, and my law firm is not going to pay for it? And I always tell them, you know, you're working for this firm now, you're working for this firm, you may not be working there tomorrow, but the course that you learned, the time they gave you to get yourself familiar with the marketing or being a better leader, taking this mastermind for 3 days is invaluable. So, you know, invest in yourself no matter what. If you're self-employed or you work for somebody else, this is the best thing you can do. And I think, you know, you've definitely done it remarkably in you know, just building yourself, because you know that you're not just working for the dealership, you are building yourself as a brand, and who knows what's going to happen to you in a few years. And you know, a perfect example is Monty from Ford, where he you know, he was the Twitter guy for them, and you know, and he left the company recently, but now he is who he is. He's a brand, and he can always use what he's done with Ford. He's been their a spokesman on Twitter for those that don't know who he is, but now he's using that fame to do something else. And I'm sure that you know that you're building something very, very valuable, and who knows what you're going to do with it in the future. Maybe you'll become one of the next gurus, and I'll be your client. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So no, that's remarkable. And Laura, what do you think is you know? Share with us one personal habit that that helps you become more successful, that you're just gonna want to share with our listeners.
Sure. So, you know, I have a lot more free time, I think, than some perhaps of our listeners, and certainly some of my coworkers. I don't have any children. You know, I don't have a large family. So I have a lot of time where I can kind of come home and.
I just want to mention that Laura is 25. For those who are wondering, so because you sound much more experienced and older than that. You don't look that, but.
Thank you. But I certainly, like you say, I mean, I have the life of a 25-year-old in the regard that I don't have a lot of responsibilities or even hobbies beyond work. So I have the flexibility to come home and to read, you know, self-improvement books, or to blog, or to go on social media. But so again, I always want to make it livable. You never want to create a habit that's just going to work you into the ground, or not give enough time to your family or those things that are important. But one thing that I recommend to people when they're struggling to find motivation is commit to it for 15 minutes. And this is kind of an old trick, and I'm actually not even sure where it came from. But when we talk about either cleaning the closet, or writing a blog post, or doing something on social media, or working on a website, I recommend commit to it. Yourself any distractions during the 15 minutes, and then if at the end of 15 minutes you want to move on, at least you invested that. But what I find 9 times out of 10 is once you get 15 minutes in, then you've got your momentum, and you'll be good to go for another, you know, hour to 2 hours. And it's pretty incredible then the work that you can kind of bust out when you're in that mindset.
Excellent. This is a great advice. And Laura, as we get to the end of our show, is there a technology tool or resource that you personally like, that you are willing to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I thought I've been thinking about resources recently, and I've put a couple posts up about. I'm a really big Apple fan. I really like the Mac computers, iMovie, and iPhone to create some of the video content. Right. But I think one of the best resources actually that I've used is something that I'm not sure if you'll be familiar with. It's called Zite.
It's called, Zite.
Zite.
How do you spell it?
Zite.
Mm-hmm.
It's an app for a smartphone, and what it does, it's completely free, and it's a customizable news source. So you can pick, Jacob, topics that you're interested in, whether it's law, whether it's politics, or automotive, hybrids, self-improvement, entrepreneurship. You can pick topics, and it'll customize stories that are in the news for you. It's updated, many, many times a day, and you can like and dislike some of these stories to kind of continue that personalization. So it's a really great way for me to find motivation, because I have a lot of self-improvement and motivating articles that I can just read quick, four things that the successful entrepreneur does every day. I can read a little article like that, or, some of the latest news about Toyota and new products that they're coming along with, or industry related news about recalls or something of that nature. So I love that one, and it's a really kind of quick download and quick use, and great way to kind of come up with content to share on Facebook and Twitter.
Perfect. I'm going to download this app as soon as we finish our recording.
Great. I hope you like it.
And also, I wanted to ask you about perhaps a book that you are reading or you read that you think that our audience can benefit from. Be nice to share.
Sure. So I have to go back to a classic. It's by Brian Tracy, and it's called The Psychology of Selling. And it's a really easy paperback read. And again, for people that are kind of cost conscious, you can buy it for, just a couple pennies on Amazon and $3 shipping used. So it's really available. And again, a paperback, really quick read. But it's about kind of the psychology and the mindset of selling. And I really encourage people, even if they're not in a direct selling environment, even if it's just, a business that you have to market yourself in, or some kind of small business owner, it's a lot about, again, some of that talk that we have, some of that internal dialogue, and what some of the studies have found about the way that successful people think. And how tangibly it can improve your business. I can't say that I go a month without rereading the book. I mean, it's really a fabulous read.
And Brian is wonderful, and he's actually on my short list as a guest on this show. Hopefully, we'll be able to get him on before the end of the year.
Oh, good.
And I'll make sure to mention you as the person that mentioned his book.
Oh, great.
Great. So we'll put a note and a link to all the things that you mentioned on the show on our show notes as well.
Perfect.
So it will be available for people, who are not able to take notes. And finally, Laura, before we say goodbye, I want you to share one small piece of advice for anybody who's starting in business or struggling that you feel you want to share with us. And it doesn't have to be anything bombastic, but something that you feel that can help anybody who is starting out, or just kind of thinking about getting into business, or is struggling to either sell or get clients that helped you. Even something. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think my biggest tip would be to ask for encouragement. I think people don't always ask for it. And the encouragement that I've been given over the last 3.5 years in this business has been incredible. And it's probably the thing that's kept me afloat. And on your worst days, if you can think of, a friend that maybe said an encouraging statement, or if you reach out on some of your networks, on a group in LinkedIn, or just on your Facebook wall, and just say, hey, I'm having a rough one today. You'd be really amazed, I think, by the thoughts that people have, but maybe that they haven't shared with you about how they admire you, and maybe how how successful your business is from an outside perspective.
Excellent. This is beautiful advice. And Laura, finally, for our audience, they want to find you online. Perhaps you can share verbally your Twitter handle and your website, and of course,
Sure.
We're going to share them on our notes as well.
Great. So my website is lauratoyota.com. My Twitter handle is Laura Toyota. You can also find me on Facebook.com/Laura Toyota.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Laura. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. And I look forward to seeing your continued success online as well.
Thank you so much, Jacob.
And this is Jacob Sapochnik, enchantinglawyer.com. We thank you for listening to the show. If you have any comments or any questions, feel free to email me or leave comments on the blog. I'm at jacob@enchantinglawyer.com, and we'll see you at our next show. Thank you so much.